With food costs on the rise, restaurant owners seem to be taking drastic and deadly measures these days in order to keep their doors open. Such is the case with today's Tales from the Crypt titled, What's Cookin'?
I call this adventure in fine dying, What's Cookin'?
Married couple Fred and Irma run a restaurant that has seen better days, mostly because every single thing on the menu is squid. I guess burgers are far too pedestrian.
I got it. Squid on a stick. Yeah, squid on a stick.
You know, I like squid, but this just looks like squid mush.
Honey, if you bury that thing in the back of my neck, you're just gonna wreck the blade.
She's probably just thinking about the insurance money if we're being honest. Fred somehow sees himself as the next Colonel Sanders, except instead of chicken, it's squid. A dedicated seafood restaurant would work, sure, but squid?
Now I have this recipe for barbecue. Barbecue? Any idiot can do barbecue.
Yeah, Gaston, anyone can do a steak, but squid on a stick? Now that's what the people want. Fred doesn't exactly want the help of a drifter who's just being paid to clean the restaurant though. Local policeman Phil comes in for a coffee, but even he can't stomach another one of Fred's squid sandwiches. For some reason later that night, Irma decides to bring Gaston some squid. I know that's all they have, but I would think he would prefer to be paid with money.
What I can't figure out is what a classy lady like you is doing with a guy like him. You ought to leave him.
I really hope she tells her husband that the hired help just tried to get her to leave him. He offers to walk her home because I'm sure he has the best of intentions, but she'll be just fine because she comes packing. I don't think you would need an enema if you ate at this place. Uh-oh, looks like the landlord, Mr. Chumley, wants his rent money, but he sure looks a lot different from his days on Pawn Stars. Fred is 3 months behind rent, but I'm not sure you want to get him angry, Chumley. You wouldn't like him when he's angry. Wait, that's the Hulk.
Then I'm gonna be back tomorrow with an eviction notice and a new set of locks.
Maybe if Fred had made something besides squid, they wouldn't be going out of business. Chumley mocks Fred's culinary skills, and this sends him off the deep end.
Oh my God, Mr. Chumley, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me.
I sure hope Gaston doesn't use Fred accidentally cutting Chumley as some kind of a blackmail. Fred unfortunately has to explain to Irma that they're being evicted tomorrow, but she seems to be in a rather upbeat mood.
Well, you're sure in a good mood. Wearing perfume?
Well, I was walking home and all of a sudden I felt kind of sexy.
I'm sure it had nothing to do with Gaston hitting on her and telling her to leave her husband. Well, Fred kills her mood once he tells her about Chumley's little visit.
Well, what am I supposed to do? I don't know how to give up.
Hey, you could try getting a job as a journalist, wink wink. Despite how bad off they are financially though, Irma isn't about to throw in the towel because she did marry him for richer or poorer. He's got a good woman and should really think about getting his ass in gear. Well, I mean, except for the part where she felt sexy because a drifter said she should leave him.
There's no point doing that today, Gaston. We're being evicted. Fred and Irma's is history.
Phil shows up for his daily coffee, unaware of the bad news, but asks if they can make him some eggs. But what's this? Steaks? Since when did they have steaks?
Barbecue idea that I was talking about? Spoke with this supplier that I know and he gave me a really good deal.
Gaston here apparently took it upon himself to help out the struggling couple by getting them a sweet deal on some steaks. Apparently it's a secret family recipe of Gaston's, and I'm sure there's no horrifying secret behind it. But I could sure go for some steak and eggs right about now.
Your landlord's a guy named Chumley, right?
Why?
We found his car in an alley near here. That and his empty wallet.
Uh-oh, looks like something happened to Chumley. His car was found with blood all over the place and he never made it home. But I'm sure he'll pop up sooner or later.
Whatever you've got cooking on that grill smells incredible. Throw it on for me, would you? Make that 2 of them.
Random people just start piling in to order some of these delicious looking steaks. But that's interesting. Gaston seems to be wiping sweat off his brow with Chumley's handkerchief.
He gave it to me. You're lying.
Gaston seems like a pretty trustworthy guy, so I believe him. Meanwhile, the steak appears to be a big hit with Phil. I hope we find out what that secret recipe is.
Hey, Gaston? Is this all the steak there is?
No, there's more back here in the freezer.
More and more people come in for these amazing steaks, which is weird because up until yesterday, their entire menu consisted of squid. I guess word travels fast in small towns. The patrons will not wait though, so Gaston asks Fred to hold open the freezer door for him so he can get some more of those amazing steaks. Sweet merciful crap, they're eating Chumley. Gaston killed Mr. Chumley and has been serving him to the diners all day, unbeknownst to Fred and Irma. He's so nonchalant about it too, while Fred is in complete shock and horror. The customers seem to be enjoying it, so I guess there's a silver lining to everything. Even Irma seems to like it. I bet it tastes like meatloaf.
We must have made $1,500 today.
Wow, $1,500 and no more paying rent. Irma offers to grab some steaks to thaw for the next day, but Fred, knowing full well what's in there, says he'll get them.
I'm gonna call the cops.
And what are you gonna tell him, Fred? That I killed your landlord because you owed him money?
That Gaston sure is a sneaky little guy. He's got Fred over a barrel now and wants 50% partnership. Otherwise, he'll tell the cops everything, putting the blame squarely on Fred. Poor Irma is still completely in the dark on the whole thing, not realizing she's serving up people for lunch. The joint sure is swinging now. Gaston even has his name on the sign.
Dick Schwartzberg just ordered seconds. He's the restaurant critic for the Daily Bugle. Do you know what that means?
That means whoever wrote this episode doesn't realize the Daily Bugle appears in Spider-Man comics, not Superman. Irma is super happy with their newfound success, but Fred on the other hand knows the horrifying truth of it all. Fred does finally decide to try some of Gaston's secret recipe, and it looks like he may have changed his mind on the whole thing.
Hey, we got a break on your landlord. Seems there was this metal in the blood sample we took from the car.
Looks like Fred's days may be numbered though, because Phil is starting to close in on just what happened to Chumley. No time to worry about that now because they made $7,000 today and all they had to do was cook up some homeless people. Now what is Gaston up to? You think Irma won't notice her gun is missing?
What's eating you?
Say that. You hear me? Don't say that.
Fred is starting to freak out because he knows Phil is onto him, but Gaston suggests maybe they should put him on the menu. Maybe they could serve a Philly cheesesteak? Get it, Phil? Cheesesteak? Oh boy. Gaston follows Irma home so he can spill the beans to her on just what exactly has been going on. Except he tells her Fred has been doing all the killing, not him.
He knows the cops are onto him. He told me tonight that he's going to kill himself. He took your gun.
This Gaston really is a little toad. We all know he has the gun, but he tells Irma to call Phil and tell him what Fred is about to do. Gaston arrives at the diner looking for Fred, and he doesn't appear to have the best of intentions. What Gaston didn't know is that Fred has X-ray vision and knew he had a gun. Gaston somehow gets the upper hand and is about to make it look like a self-harming, stupid YouTube. Before he does, however, Irma arrives and things get interesting.
He picked up a cleaver and he fired!
Ooh, turns out Irma's gun never actually carries any bullets and is all for show. She called Fred to warn him about Gaston, and things don't look good for him.
Officer! 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 Thank God you made it. Here are the killers.
Looks like Phil made it just in time to stop the couple before anything could happen to our poor Gaston here. But in an unforeseen twist, looks like Phil wants to join in on their little venture as a means of retiring from being a police officer.
Farley's flame broiled sound okay to you guys?
Sounds pretty good to me, Phil.
And just like that, Gaston becomes tomorrow's special. They're gonna have to change that sign though. Oh, it just did it by itself, I guess. What's Cookin' is a really fun Tales from the Crypt episode, and the highest rated according to IMDb. It debuted July 22nd, 1992 on HBO, and was written by A.L. Katz and Gilbert Adler, who both have worked on several episodes of the series in various roles, whether it being writing or producing. It was also directed by Gilbert Adler, who directed one other episode and the second film, Bordello of Blood. The episode boasts a pretty star-studded cast. In the role of Gaston, we have Judd Nelson, who is really good at playing a conniving little creep. You don't know exactly what his endgame is, but by the end, you really just want him to get his just desserts, which of course he does. He's had a pretty extensive career spanning nearly 5 decades, but he'll probably be best known for his role in the John Hughes classic, The Breakfast Club. The landlord Chumley is played by the always great Meatloaf. Even in his very brief role, he just has that charisma to make you either love him or hate him. Oddly, this is the second time in his career his character has been eaten, with the first coming in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, really living up to his name Meatloaf. Meatloaf passed away last year, but the effect he has had on pop culture, whether it's acting or singing, will be felt for decades to come. And well, I can't forget Fred, played by the wonderful Christopher Reeve. And I mean, what can I say? It's Superman. The best Superman ever put on screen in my opinion, and here he is in Tales from the Crypt as a man serving human steaks. He really took what he learned from playing Clark Kent and being a bumbling but lovable reporter to now a bumbling, lovable restaurant owner. Sure, he's serving up people, but before that happens, you can't help but root for the guy. Christopher Reeve sadly passed away in 2004 after a horse riding accident left him completely paralyzed and reliant on a ventilator in 1995. He spent the next 9 years fighting and inspiring others like him not to give up, because that's what a real Superman does. What's Cookin' is based on the story of the same name, which can be found in the pages of Haunt of Fear 12. Haunt of Fear 12 came out in April 1952 with cover art by Graham Ingalls. He had such a flair for horror that EC Comics eventually promoted him to Ghastly Graham Ingalls, and he would start signing all of his work as Ghastly. The cover features a couple men who are being chased by some kind of terrifying ghoul, and in the bottom right corner, it is indeed signed as Ghastly. The story What's Cookin' was written and penciled by Jack Davis, who is an American cartoonist and one of the founders for Mad Magazine. The story is about 2 men, Herman and Charlie, who have a failing roadside restaurant. One day a vagrant named Eric arrives and tells the men he could help them save their fledgling business. Eric tells the men he'll work for free until the business starts making a profit, then he wants in 50-50. They agree to the deal and Eric tells them his master plan: chicken. Yes, instead of focusing on many different dishes, his plan is to focus on one and perfect it. There also just so happens to be a chicken farm nearby as well, so they'll never run out of fresh product. Eric gets to work redoing the roof and changing the name to the Chicken Coop. He also builds them a new brick barbecue out front so cars driving by can smell the tasty chicken being cooked up. The place becomes a huge hit, and because of this, they need to expand. Construction begins on an even bigger chicken coop with a larger barbecue and a very large deep fat fryer. They plan on using the fat collected from the barbecue for their deep fried southern style chicken. But jealousy and greed starts to rear its ugly head. Herman and Charlie are no longer content with splitting the money with Eric and instead want it all for themselves. But what can we do? We have an agreement we made when we were nothing. If Eric were to die, we could forget the agreement. The 2 men decide then and there burning Eric alive in his house is their only option. They gag and tie Eric, lighting his house ablaze, not realizing they just sealed their own fates. The burnt, shambling corpse of Eric makes its way back to the restaurant, where the 2 men can't believe their eyes. Gulp. Eric! It can't be! The following day, investigators arrive at the chicken coop to ask about the fire at Eric's house, and there they find the bodies of Charlie and Herman. Herman having been broiled, and Charlie deep fried in his fat. Wow, what a family-friendly story, you guys. What's Cookin' is a great Tales from the Crypt episode and comes highly recommended if you're looking for something fun and spooky to watch. Well, that's all for today, boils and ghouls, but check back soon as we dig into more Tales from the Crypt. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please subscribe. Also, lick that like button. Thank you for watching, and...
Till next time, restaurateur in peace.